It's the end of the month and you're out to eat at a nice restaurant and the bill comes. You look down and cringe because it's more than you thought it would be.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
You've been telling yourself that 2024 was the year you were going to finally start saving money, but at the end of the month, you seem to have no money left over to save. And what was a great night out with friends turns into you feeling guilty about spending your money. When it comes to money, it's hard to balance spending enough to enjoy your life with saving money. So in this video, I'm going to break down a recent post from Ramit Sethi, a New York Times bestseller and finance expert, to show you step by step what I would do with my paycheck to maximize my spending while still being financially responsible. Let's dive in. Here's a fact. You don't pay attention to how much money you're spending because it's too much work. Not only does tracking every purchase make you feel guilty about what you spent money on, but it just feels like it doesn't make that much of a difference in the long run. And that's why most people don't consistently save money. But if you don't figure out a way to make tracking your money simple, then you'll never be able to enjoy your life because there will always be a voice in the back of your head wondering if you're saving enough money. So I wanted to show you how to track your money with only 4 numbers. And once you calculate these 4 numbers for yourself, I'll show you how to set up an automated system so you're spending less than 1 hour per month on your finances. I promise it will be the simplest system you've ever implemented. But before I get into the 4 numbers, we have to set our baseline.
To the baseline!
Your baseline is the exact dollar amount that you see hit your bank account after taxes. If you're self-employed or a 1099 worker, you have to account for taxes, but I'm assuming most people, like myself, are W-2. So last month, I made $5,340. Now, if you have a 401k like me, you need to go back into your paycheck and figure out how much you contributed and add that back into your paycheck. I contribute $400 per month to my 401k, so my new total is $5,740. I also have health insurance, which is $300 per month. That is deducted automatically before I receive my paycheck, so I add that back in as well, making my total $6,040. Now that we've established how much I make every month, we can start with the first number you need to track, and it's the most important. That first number is the percentage of your income that you invest. When it comes to investing, most people think of gambling. They get worried that all their hard-earned money is going to be lost betting on a company that turns out to be worthless. But it's much simpler than that. Instead of investing in individual stocks, you could invest in a group of stocks like the S&P 500. It's like buying all the biggest companies in America. In order for your money to go to zero, all the companies in America would have to become worthless at the same time, which, in my opinion, is highly unlikely. And while in the short term your money may go down, over the long run, investing your money allows it to compound. Like Albert Einstein said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So the first number you need to track is how much you're investing. According to Ramit,
long-term investments. Now, this category is so important because this is where real wealth is created. My recommendation is that you put at least 10% of your take-home pay in investments. Of course, the more, the better. Now, this bucket includes the amount that you will send to your 401k and Roth IRA. I know some of it's post-tax and pre-tax. We're just going to simplify it here, okay? Just to say 10% of your money should be going to investments at a minimum. Why do I recommend you invest 10% minimum? Because that money compounds. It grows like you would not believe. There will be a point where you'll be making more from your investments than from your income. Let's take a look at these 2 examples. Savvy Sally actually invests less, but ends up with $60,000 more. Let me show you. She invests $200 a month from ages 35 to 45, and that's it. She never does anything else. She just puts it in there and it grows. Now, naive Noah comes along. He's too preoccupied to worry about money. He goes, I'll get to it someday. So naive Noah says, you know what? I'm gonna change my life today. I'm ready. Great. Naive Noah starts investing at age 45. And he invests $200 a month, same amount, until he's 65. So he invests for 20 years compared to the 10 years that Savvy Sally invests for, okay? Savvy Sally has $60,000 more, even though she invested for half the time. This is the power of compounding. And this is why the earlier you start investing, the better.
So now that I have $6,040 of income, the first thing I do before anything else is deduct 10% for investing, which means I have to deduct $604. Like Ramit said, this includes your 401k. So I account for the $400 which is already going towards my 401k. And then I take out an additional $204 that I send to a Roth IRA that I set up myself in a brokerage account. You can use any brokerage account to set up a Roth IRA, but I personally use M1 Finance. I invest all that money into a variety of low-cost index funds to diversify my risk, and then I forget about it. It's really that simple. After I invested 10% of my income, I'm ready to move on to the second number we should be tracking. This number is incredibly important for your peace of mind. What would it feel like to have 6 months of expenses set aside at all times? Imagine the peace of mind that would bring if you lost your job and knew that you weren't going to be homeless or struggling to get by while you look for a new one. What would it feel like to pay off your student debt or your car loans early so you could free up even more money to spend on a nicer house, fancier clothes, or a beautiful vacation? That's why how much you save as a percentage of your income is the next most important number to track. Ramit suggests
your savings goals. Your savings goals should be at least 5 to 10% of your take-home pay. What is savings? A lot of people are like, oh, I should save money. Mom told me, dad told me. We don't even know what savings is for. Therefore, we're not going to save money if we don't even know what the purpose is. Let me tell you, your savings category is for money that you're going to use between 1 to 5 years from now. Let me explain. It could be that you're saving up for a nice trip. You're saving up for a beautiful coat. You might be saving up for something bigger, an engagement ring, a down payment on a house. And your savings category should always include an emergency fund. I recommend 3 to 6 months of enough expenses to keep the lights on. What I mean by that is if you got laid off or something really bad happened, you'd probably cancel your subscriptions. You'd probably stop eating out. So calculate how much it would cost you just to keep the lights on, and then multiply that by 3 months or 6 months. And that's how you can save up for that. Now, I recommend 3 to 6 months. Personally, I have 12 months because I'm a little bit more conservative with money. It's okay if it's 3 months or 6 months for you. Just know this. Know that that goal is going to take you a while to fill it up. It's probably going to take you years to get 6 months of an emergency fund. That's fine. If you're putting $100, $200, $300 a month away for just that, letting it sit there, fantastic. Just keep contributing to it every single month.
So Ramit recommends saving 10% of your income. So after investing my money, I was left with $5,436. In order to save 10%, I need to save an additional $604. Now, if I don't yet have 6 months of expenses saved up, that would be the first thing I allocate my savings for. And if you're unsure how much 6 months of expenses would be, I'll show you how to calculate that when we go through the third number you need to track. But once I saved up an emergency fund, you can use the savings like Ramit suggests for a down payment, a ring, a nice vacation. In other words, however you like. But it's incredibly important to build up a 6-month emergency fund to give yourself the peace of mind you need to follow through with this plan. However, if there's one thing that you should take away from this video, it's that the very first thing you should do the second you get paid is take out 10% to invest and 10% to save. And that's because it simplifies your finances. The only reason to track how much you spend is so you can ensure that you have enough left over to save and invest. But if the first thing you do is save and invest, then you no longer need to track every single payment you make. It's like eating your vegetables first and then your steak second. If you ate your steak first, the entire time you're eating it, you're wondering if you'll have enough room to finish your vegetables. But if you just knock out your vegetables first, you can spend the rest of your dinner enjoying the steak. Once I've invested 10% of my income and saved another 10%, I can move on to the third number to track. The third number is where most people typically start spending their money, which is a crucial mistake. This is why 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. When you have your paycheck coming in and you aren't tracking where it's all going, you feel like you have more money than you really do. And so you go out and get a bigger apartment or overspend on a house. Maybe you buy a new car with no money down. Once you're done buying all those nice things, you get stuck with high monthly payments and feel trapped because you can't spend or save as much as you want. The only way to prevent this from happening is to keep your fixed costs below a certain percentage of your income. This is the third number you need to track. Ramit suggests
fixed costs. This category should be roughly 50 to 60% of your take-home pay. Now, this is really important because if your fixed costs are higher than that, you're going to find it very difficult to save money on anything. You're going to find it very difficult to have enough money to invest, and you're going to feel stressed out because you're not going to have enough money just to have fun. So here's what fixed costs include. your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, your transportation, not just the car payment, but also the gas and the annual registration, all of it, groceries, debt payments, including student loans, and your subscriptions.
So after I've taken out 20% of my income for saving and investing, I'm left with $4,832, and it's time to take out fixed costs. I rent a place for a little over $1,300 per month, including utilities. I have a fully paid off car, but I drive a good bit for work. So last month I spent $327 on gas. My car insurance is $122 per month, and my phone bill is $80 per month. I spent $546 last month on groceries. I have no debt payments because I paid for my car in cash, and I've paid back my student loans. A category he didn't include was health insurance, and as I said before, I spend $300 per month on health insurance. And finally, I spend about $73 per month on subscriptions. Did you notice how I calculated that? I went through my bills from the previous month and I totaled up what I spent in each category. If you don't take the time to go through your statements, then you'll most likely underestimate how much you're spending on your fixed costs. It's crucial that you get an accurate picture of your fixed costs so you can address any overspending that you may come across. But don't worry, this isn't something you have to do every month.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Lord.
This is only something you have to do this one time, because later on, I'll show you how to automate this to make tracking this category much easier. In total, I'm spending $2,804 per month on fixed costs, which accounts for about 46% of my income. If you calculate this for yourself and you find that you're over 60%, then Ramit suggests this.
If you find that your fixed costs are too high, which is really common, it's usually the result of one or two categories: housing or your car. Now, I see a lot of people spending, and I consistently see people paying too much for their housing and their car. Think about it. How did you decide how much you could afford on your rent or your mortgage? How did you decide how much car you can afford? Most people literally just look at the monthly payment and they go, yeah, that sounds good. $400 a month. Wrong. Here's my suggestion for you. Before you buy these big ticket items, you've got to be really thoughtful about how much you can actually afford. It's not enough to say, I want a Mazda. No, you've got to go deeper than that. For example, when it comes to housing, you've got to factor in all the phantom costs, taxes, utilities, maintenance, and then you can use some guidelines. For example, housing should ideally be no more than 28% of your gross income. If you can hit that, or if you live in a high cost of living city, you can stretch that to 32, maybe even 33%. Now you're starting to make more intelligent decisions.
Now that you've calculated your fixed costs, you can also figure out the amount you need for an emergency fund. Just take your fixed costs and multiply it by 3 or 6, depending on how many months of savings you want in an emergency fund. So for me, I want a little under $17,000 in an emergency fund. Now, because I'm only spending 46% of my income on my fixed costs, I have room to increase this category. I could maybe upgrade my apartment or get a nicer car, but there's a reason I don't, and that's because I would prefer to leave as much money as possible for the fourth and final number. The fourth number is what should motivate you to stick to the first 3 numbers you set for yourself, and it's something that everyone overlooks in their budget. In fact, the word budget has such a negative connotation because people associate it with cutting back or not having fun. But the truth is, budgeting is all about maximizing the amount of fun you can have with your money. And so the fourth number that you should track is guilt-free spending. Here's what Ramit suggests.
Speaking of which, that brings me to the fourth number you need to track: guilt-free spending. And this is actually my favorite one of all. The point of money, you frugality freaks, is not to simply sit there and hoard it and look at your little calculations every day. B32 minus B42. Oh my gosh, I grew my net worth by $13,000. It's so cool. Let me post on Reddit. All right, if you enjoy that, God bless. But the point of money is not simply to save it. The point of money is to use it to live your rich life. Yes, you should save. Yes, you should invest. What did we just talk about? But also, you've got to spend it on things that are meaningful to you. After you pay all your bills, after you invest, after you save, this is the guilt-free money. The stuff you can use on anything you want. And depending how you've structured your other buckets, a good guideline here is 20 to 35% of your take-home pay for guilt-free spending. That's a lot of money. And yes, 20 to 35%, when you hear it, you go, oh my God, that's a lot. But you have to remember this. This is an area where if you're not paying attention, a lot of people end up spending 50%. A lot of people are actually spending more than they make every single month, and they don't even realize it. So if your fixed cost number is where it should be, 50 to 60%, if your savings is where it should be, 5 to 10%, investments 5 to 10%, you've got a pretty healthy amount to spend on guilt-free spending. And there is one additional dynamic, especially for the people watching this video, which is some people have an artificially low guilt-free spending number. All right, I talked about the people who spend way too much. What about the people who come to me, Ramit, Sethi, I'm so proud, I only have 5% guilt-free spending. And then they go like this. That's them waiting for me to applaud them. Oh my God, you're so cool. You only spend 5%. That's a failure. If you're only spending 5% of take-home pay on guilt-free spending, you suck at the skill of spending money. That's like saying I've been lifting weights for 30 years and I'm doing a 1 ounce bicep curl. It's like, have you ever heard of progressive overload? Have you ever heard of working your muscle and working the muscle of spending? You've got to learn how to spend your money meaningfully.
In previous videos, I've told you how I've saved over 50% of my income in 2023. And so I would be the guy that Ramit would yell at for being bad at spending my money. But I also understand that the majority of people are not like me and shouldn't do what I do. Most people would live a much happier and fulfilling life if they followed this plan that Ramit lays out. If we go back to my budget and take out investments, savings, and fixed costs, I'm left with $2,028 to spend every month guilt-free. This means I'd be spending 33% of my income without a care in the world. The reason you can spend this money with zero guilt is because you've already taken care of your retirement, your savings, and your fixed costs. There's nothing left to do with your money except spend it. Buy as many Starbucks coffees as you want. Go out to eat whenever you feel like it. Plan beautiful vacations and enjoy your money. So if you hate the idea of saving for the future and you want to maximize living for today, then these are the 4 numbers you need to track to make sure you're still being financially responsible while being able to enjoy your life. But there's one last thing you need to do to ensure you can spend less than 1 hour per month on your finances. Once you figure out the amount you should be investing, saving, spending on fixed costs, and guilt-free spending, automate everything. Now, your 401k should already be automated because it typically gets taken out of your paycheck before you receive it. But to automate the rest of your investing, go into your Roth IRA and schedule a recurring transfer monthly for the day after your paycheck hits your bank account to make sure it's the first money that gets pulled out. To automate your savings, open up a separate savings account and have a recurring transfer from your bank account to your savings on that same day your investments get pulled out. So for example, if you get paid on the 15th, set a recurring transfer for the 16th. To make tracking your fixed costs simple, open up a credit card and only use it for groceries, subscriptions, and any other fixed costs. Now, some fixed costs like your rent, debt payments, utilities, and insurances will probably be pulled out of your bank account directly. But at the end of the month, it should take no longer than 5 minutes to add up the balance on the credit card with the payments that were taken out of your bank account. You'll be able to get a quick snapshot of how much you spend on fixed costs every month to ensure it stays around the limit you set for yourself. And finally, to track your guilt-free spending, open up a second credit card and dedicate it to guilt-free spending only. At the end of the month, you can once again quickly check to make sure your balance isn't greater than the amount you set for yourself. Most importantly, make sure to pay off all credit card balances in full every month. There are no exceptions to this. And just like that, you've built a fully automated system to track your finances while giving yourself the ability to spend completely guilt-free. But as I mentioned earlier, I save and invest over 50% of my income. The reason I do that is because I want to retire early. So if you're like me and want to save a higher percentage of your income, you have to follow a more aggressive plan. And that's why I went to the early retirement expert Graham Stephan to review all of his videos so I can show you how to save over 40% of your income. So check out this video next if you want to retire in 20 years or less.